Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another Ultra Confusion interview. This time we have Derek from Shoreless Skies Publishing. Say hello, Derek.
Hey, everybody.
So, Derek, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am a teacher by day and a writer by night. I started Shoreless Skies earlier this year to start releasing some of the stuff I've been working on, which includes games and fiction, and published our first game back in February and have a novel coming out very soon. And yeah, I love games and I love fantasy and sci-fi, so that informs a lot of the stuff that I make.
Cool. Okay, so the name of the game that you just released is called The Dig.
Yes.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about The Dig?
Sure. So The Dig is, there are lots of terms, people like to call role-playing games collaborative storytelling games or narrative games or whatever you want to call it. I like to call The Dig a light RPG, just because it's really just focused on giving you what you need to tell a great story and a fun story without a lot of crunch. There's no inventory to deal with. There's no crazy modifier equations or anything like that. And it's set in a world that's all about dwarves. So every player is a dwarf, and this you can set it where you like. Most of the action takes place in a subterranean society called the Homes. So, you can think of Moria or, the Lonely Mountain, places like that. And there's not a lot of combat. It's really focused on creating something. So some of the pre-written scenarios in the book are about starting up a pub. There's one about finding some treasure that was lost. And again, the whole idea is just to give players what they need to tell a fun and lighthearted story that's all about dwarves. So if you like, any fantasy setting, if you are into the dwarves, then you would enjoy this as well.
Cool. So the description that I found on Shoreless Skies website here basically says it's dwarves band together to reshape the underworld. Players tell grand stories of subterranean adventure and craft in a light, GM-less storytelling RPG set in the Homes.
Right.
So my question is, you said that the main focus is not going to be combat. It's going to be the story, the experience. What is there? Like dice or cards that play into this, or is it just strictly the storytelling?
So the mechanics are very simple. As you read, it's GM-less, so there's no mediator. The person who, even though you call a game GM-less, somebody's going to kind of jump in. If you're a control freak like me, like, oh, you'll direct traffic a little bit. So there's no GM, and everything is just centered around 1d6. So that was intentional. In the appendix, there's some rules if you want to use like d20 or your preferred polyhedral choice, but the vanilla rules are 1d6, and the target number is always 4, and you can invoke some character qualities to give yourself a little bump, and then there's a stat that's tied to it that's either going to move it up 1, down 1, or not affect it at all. And each of those skills that has a modifier is tied to the round you're playing in. So, for example, you might be at the craft round where it's time to, build this amazing battle axe that you've been trying to design. But if your character is not a skilled craftsman, you take -1. But again, like I said, if you can invoke some kind of trait, then you can get a +1 advantage, which would kind of negate that. So it's, like I said, it's 1d6. You can have a bonus based on a quality and a modifier based on your skill, and that's it. So there's not a lot to it. And like I said, that was intentional. So for people who maybe read the novel, where the settings are tied together and want to try playing the game, or if you want an easy game to infect your friends and family with, that's not very crunchy, the design was intentional to try to include everybody. So you just say, well, you roll this d6 and you add or subtract, and if you can add something to the story, then you get a bonus.
Okay, so you mentioned modifiers and skills. So the next question I have is there like defined classes, or how do different characters have different stats? Because I'm assuming everyone's going to be dwarves, right?
Yeah, everyone is a dwarf. That's the one limitation. Everything else is pretty open. And you don't have a class, but you have a background that's based on your dwarf's house. So you can kind of think of it in 2 ways. Like the easiest way to think about it is in other RPGs, you'd have a race. So that's kind of like your house. That's the family that you come from. And the house that you choose has some traits that come with it that you would write along your character sheet. And then whereas you don't have a class, you do have a cog, and cog is more like a profession.
Okay.
So that's kind of the equivalent, but you're still a dwarf.
Gotcha.
So your cog would be like, if you might be a forger, which is a smith. So you would have a lot of qualities and traits that would be associated with crafting, strength because you're a smithy, that kind of thing. So you choose your house, which is your familial background. You choose your cog, which is your profession. And then you are given traits based on that. And so, and then after that, there's a point of customization where you define how your character looks. You can add or subtract traits. If the given traits don't particularly fit the dwarf that you want to play as, or if you choose not to have a cog, or even a house for that matter, you can input your own traits. So there's a great amount of customization. And then on the flip side of the coin, if you are just one of those people that just wants to play, you can roll and it'll create a character for you. So
gotcha.
Try to keep the barriers to entry super low.
Okay. So with this game that was released back in February, is there any plans to maybe like put out modular or single adventures or something, or do you really want it to be driven by the actual gamer?
My hope is that it would be driven by the gamer. So, being an independent publisher, there's not a lot of marketing. So like it's sold fairly well. There are people playing the game. I've made some con appearances. I'm doing Gen Con. So I think once the ball gets rolling, I'm hoping to get more feedback from players with some adventures that they came up with. The guys over on the Gauntlet podcast played it, and they said they created a pub, but it was like above ground. It was out in the world, and they were like spreading dwarvish culture. So that's the kind of thing that I hope people kind of grab it and run with it. I do have plans to release some more scenarios. So the structure, like I said, is you have an opening, 3 story rounds, and then a finale. So there are some of those that are already out, but I plan to do a few more, just put them up on the website. They're little 1-page documents that you could think of them as story seeds to kind of get your group going. And that's probably about as far as I'll take it.
Cool. All right. So as you've basically been alluding to, the game The Dig is based on basically the universe of an upcoming book that you're going to release sometime this year called Home. So give us a little bit of background on Homes.
Absolutely. So I'll start with kind of where it came from, and then I'll tell you a little bit about the story. I had been playing a lot of Dwarf Fortress, which is, for those who don't know, is a very difficult game where you're dwarves founding a fortress, but it's a very funny game. And I had recently reread The Hobbit. One of the other games I play occasionally is The Lord of the Rings Online. And they released a great expansion for the Mines of Moria, which is one of the few online MMOs that really did, I think, a subterranean setting super well. And so I had like the underworld on my brain. And I just started writing. And the story came out. Now, this was probably about 4 or 5 years ago. And I just kind of blasted out the story. I've written most of my life, but this was the first time where I was like, I'm just going to go for it. And I'm going to write a novel. And it kept coming. And the story that came out was about a dwarf who is super cranky. He doesn't like his friends all that much. The only thing he likes is his job. And he crosses the wrong guy, even though he didn't do anything wrong. He just insulted the wrong guy who had some connections. And he is ejected from the Homes, this dwarf settlement. And while he's gone, things begin to stir up. There's a rebellion. These ancient enemies that were like, they're just kind of out of old stories that nobody expected, show up and begin wreaking havoc. And so he has to come back and overcome his crotchetiness to save his people. So, and along the way, you meet a lot of funny, goofy characters. To go off on a little bit of a tangent, I get really bored and annoyed with the usual tropes of dwarves. You know what I mean? So like, I don't know, maybe you can tell me, I don't know where the typical D&D like drunk Highlander dwarf, Warhammer dwarf came from, but I get really annoyed by that. And
I really don't know where that came from, but
yeah.
You're absolutely right. Like every single dwarf I could think of is, this squat guy with a beard who's always either in the process of or is already past the limit of drunkenness.
Right. Yeah. So you get, John Rhys Davies up there, like, let's kill all the orcs. I've drunk my 5th beer.
Yep.
So no disrespect to Mr. Davies. He's a brilliant performer. So I want to get away from that a little bit. There's still alcohol because we're grown-ups. But the dwarves are more, I don't know, they're almost, because I'm such a Tolkien nerd, I would say they're more relatable to hobbits, which readers can make their own decisions about that. But I was trying to get away from that trope of the drunken, tattooed, axe wielding Scotsman. But anyway, so I sat on the book for a long time. I was like, yeah, I don't think anybody wants to read this. I had kind of a half-assed attempt at finding an agent, a publisher. It didn't really go all that well. And then last year, this was really at Dragon Con and a few other places. I attended some cons, and there were a lot of people like Eloy Lasanta from Third Eye Games that were talking about ways you just self-publish. You just make a PDF, you put it up on drive-through, and you might do all right. And I went back to Holmes and I thought, there's a game here somewhere. I have cogs, I have houses, there's a game here. And so the game came to me very quickly, and I released it. And I thought, I put this game out, I might as well put out the book that came with it. And so I went back and I edited it. I saw like a lot of dumb mistakes that I fixed. I got it professionally edited. I got my buddy Jacob, who did the art for the Dig, to do the cover. And yeah, it'll be out next month.
Awesome. So kind of backtrack a little bit here. So the place to get all the information on the Dig and Holmes is going to be your website, which is www.shorelessskies, all one word, .com.
A lot of S's.
Yes, lots of S's. And if there are individuals out there who are interested in picking up the Dig, you can get it through Amazon or through Drive-Thru RPG. It's $15 for the soft cover and $10 for the PDF. Now, you kind of went into this, but I'm going to ask you your toughest challenge on either or both, because it is pretty, well tied together. So what's your toughest challenge that you faced thus far?
The toughest challenge, I think, I'll do two. I'll do the novel and the game. I think for the game, the toughest thing was it's going to be marketing, because if I, was a professional game designer and I got Asmodee or somebody or whatever to release my game, marketing's taken care of. I can just make a game. Same thing with the novel. Right. We're about to start pre-orders. So getting the word out is really difficult. The other thing that's really difficult in any creative endeavor is getting over yourself. So when I made the Dig, I was like, man, this is going to be a shit game. Nobody's going to want to play it. But I just went for it anyway because I had a good product. I read it. My friends and I play tested it. We had a good time. There's a video on YouTube of us playing that I think is mildly entertaining. So once you getting it written was pretty easy, because that's what I do. I've practiced writing for a long time. Being patient for it to be released when you're waiting for proof copies is hard. And then as I said, getting over myself and marketing, those are the most difficult things. And going it alone is tough too. So, if anybody's watching this and you're thinking about self-publishing, or maybe you already do, going it alone is tough. If you've got a little money, I was able to set aside some money. So I had a professional artist. That makes a big difference. But doing a layout and doing all these things that you have to do is difficult. So I think getting connected online with other people who are doing stuff like that. I'm part of IGDN, the Independent Games Developers Network. They're a great resource. So if you are setting out alone to make a game or a book or do any kind of creative endeavor, I don't know why I've turned this into a motivational speech, but but get connected with people and find like-minded people to share your stuff with, and play test or proofread or whatever it is you're doing.
So one of the things that I've personally dealt with when I'm talking to developers of both board games, basically any medium here, is that and I'm sure that this is the same with you, but the toughest hurdle for them has always been allowing people outside their group of friends to actually see their creation, see that baby, and be able to take a step back and allow both the good and bad comments to come through. Yes. So what is your personal advice towards, future or in the process of being indie creators? What's your advice for when you do allow it to get a little bit of air in that the open world?
Take a deep breath, have a drink, and just take all that sensitivity and those feelings. You just stuff them way down, and you can vent to your friends later. but take it, take any feedback you get seriously, and be open to that, because people are going to think of things that you never thought of, and you need that in your product, whatever it would be. And it's challenging, whether it's a game or any creative endeavor. Your heart's in it, and so you might feel the tendency to be offended or take it personally. They're talking about this thing you made. They're not talking about you. And I would say, especially with games, you got to eat up all the feedback you can get, because, I do agree that games are art, but people don't play, a painting, or people don't play a novel. So if people are going to be getting hands-on with this thing you're making, then you really need to let them get in there and get their hands dirty as well. So yeah, just don't take it personally, and just suck up all the feedback you can get. And I would also say, take your time. If there's one thing I did wrong with the dig, it was that I'm not going to say I rushed it, but I could have taken more time. I could have done a little more play testing, or gotten a little more art, or worked a little bit more on the layout. I still think it's a great book that I'm proud of. But games take time to develop, so don't be afraid to take your time, and even if it feels like it's taken forever.
So I know that you're basically involved in the dig and also Homes, but is there any plans past where we are right now?
Oh yeah, I way too many plans, because the things that are actual tangible that will see fruition. I have a short little, well, I guess a couple things I could talk about. One, I did Game Chef, and if I get some good feedback on that game, that'll probably be released. That game is a story game, improv game based on socialites in Atlanta in the near future who are being pursued by murderous robots.
Okay.
So you can be on the lookout for that. It's going to be brilliant. No, I'm just kidding. The other thing is a short little poetry game I made that I'm just playtesting now, that'll be released for free, based on Tom Bombadil. Like I said, I'm a Tolkien nut, and so this will just be a free release, because if you try to sell anything with Tolkien, the Tolkien estate will fly from Britain and kill you. The other thing I'm working on is a Dungeon World add-on, a Dungeon World mod, based on another game called Edragor, which might mean something to somebody or might not. And then after that, the sky's the limit. I have sequels in mind for the Homes. I have some other books I may self-publish. My dreams are definitely, my reach is exceeding my grasp. That's what I'm trying to say. Because I would love to produce an anthology of writers that I like and sell that through Shoreless Skies. I'd love to take on other writers and game makers, but right now I have to focus on what's in front of me, and right now that's the Homes and the Dig and those other games I mentioned. So we'll see what happens, but yeah, right now that's what's going on.
Awesome. Okay, so when you do get a chance, and hopefully you do get a chance to kind of take a deep breath and walk away from Shoreless Skies for a little bit of time, what is it that you do to kind of unwind, or maybe do it like a refresher in your brain?
Anytime I can get away from my kids, that helps, so I can just sit and think. But really, playing games, I think that's been the biggest, the thing I've wrestled with the most since I started. And again, I haven't been at this long, but since I have started developing games and designing games, that's been the hardest thing. Is I might have time where I would otherwise be playing games. Well, that time needs to be put now into the book or the game that I'm working on. So, taking a break from this stuff, I would definitely want to play more games. I've got a backlog of RPGs and card games, and, my Steam wish list is like 9 months pregnant. So I would like to play more games and see what other people are doing, because, there's so much out there in the indie scene and beyond that I read about, but I don't get the time to experience. And so there are a lot more games that I want to play. So when it's time to unwind, I'll have some friends over. I'll crash your house, and we'll play some games.
Cool. Just a personal side note: do not turn on Steam right now, because the sales are going on, and it's like crack. I've turned off. Steam only turns on when I basically try to load one of the indie games I'm trying to review. Otherwise, I don't look at it.
Yeah, otherwise you're going to be broke and have some unhappy family members.
Oh yeah, exactly. All right, so I want to thank you for taking time. I do want everyone out there to once again find out where you can find more information on both your company and of course the other stuff. So if you could just give us a quick summary of how we can find more information about all your stuff.
Well, first of all, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate your time. The main hub is shorelessskies.com. And if you just Google Shoreless Skies, or if you Google Derek Kamal or Derek A. Kamal, that's kind of my brand name, I guess, that'll come up. And from there's a page on the Dig, which will link you to, as you said, Amazon or drive-through. There's also a page for the homes. Pre-sales or pre-orders start tomorrow for the book. So if you go on shorelessskies.com, you'll see that. If you look me up on, actually from that site, there's links for Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all the socials that you could ever want. And I'll also be making announcements on there, so you can pre-order the book. And here's your exclusive. Once the book comes out in mid-July, the Dig will be half off for a while, just to kind of celebrate the release of the book. So if anybody who's watching this, I know you're dying to go get the Dig now, but if you can hold out for like a couple weeks, whenever I release Homes, the Dig will be half off for print and PDF as well. And then the Homes will be released on Amazon, because the KDP is just, the Kindle Direct Publishing they sweeten the pot so much. It's going to be exclusive on there for a while, and then it'll be up on like Smashwords and Barnes and Noble and all those other places. So, so yeah, that's where you'll find me.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for taking time to talk about your game and your company. Ladies and gentlemen, Derek from Shoreless Skies Publishing. Check out his stuff, and hopefully you will love all of it, and Derek will keep giving us the good stuff, and it will be a bright future for everyone.
Cool.
So thank you again.
Thanks, Charlie.
Thank you.